Hello and welcome. How powerful is the movement for change in the Middle East becoming as it draws in star power and the shared experience of music for the masses? Throughout human history, songs have been used as the anthems of popular uprisings against despots and dictators. And one rock icon is now doing just that for the Arab world. Yusuf Islam, now recording simply as Yusuf, had a string of platinum hits in the 1970s as Cat Stevens. He's just written and recorded My People, a song inspired by the dramatic political turmoil in Egypt. Al Jazeera is bringing you an exclusive look at that song. Take a listen.
My people, see them coming now. My people, can't you hear them shout? My people, every day, everywhere. My people, stop running from. My people, stop stealing from. My people, stop pointing guns at.
That's an excerpt from the song My People, written by Yusuf for the people of Egypt and the rest of the Arab world. And today we ask, how potent is music as an instrument of peaceful social change? Remember, you can send us your questions and comments by SMS or email. Well, joining us now is Yusuf himself, the rock icon who's given us world timeless classics such as Wild World, Father and Son, and of course Peace Train, which he wrote 40 years ago. He's with us from Dubai, where he now lives. Yusuf, it's great to have you back on the show.
Thank you very much, Riz.
Tell me about this new song, My People. I'm just wondering what made you write it and what you hoped it would achieve.
Well, of course, we were watching the developments, what was happening in Egypt and Tunisia, and like many, you know, I was very inspired, and I suddenly wrote this song, you know, called My People. Then we posted it up on Facebook to just get kind of a bit more involvement from people around the world and get them to send in their sort of voices singing the chorus. Then we arranged a session very quickly in Berlin with a few musicians, and you know, all of a sudden the track was there. And Berlin was very special, I think, also because, you know, that's the city which has become a symbol of peace, really, where you know, the wall fell, you know, 2 decades ago, and people were emancipated, you know, allowed to move freely again, and that was the importance of that city. We actually recorded it about 100 yards from where the wall used to be.
So I gather,
you know,
yeah.
So really, this was just an effort by myself, if you like, but also together with a whole lot of people around the world who sent in their voices to send a message of support from free people to people who want to be free.
Tell me about that, because you had so many diverse nationalities contact you, and I know you sampled voices and put it together. How did that work?
Well, you know, they just sent in, I mean, some of them, you know, we couldn't use them, but because they were so noisy and they didn't quite sing in time, but the majority, you know, were perfect, and we just slotted them in, because now you can do it all in digital on, you know, Pro Tools, and so therefore we just lined them up, you know, and then we suddenly, when the first time we heard it, we were just amazed how beautiful that was, this kind of, you know, this moment. Which is kind of historic in a way, getting people to sing together, you know, on a track through Facebook.
Now, so social networking, which has obviously been the trigger for political and social change in the Arab world, and is continuing to be that trigger, also played a part in your song. And I wonder how you regard the way that social networking has developed as a power for change.
Yeah, it's quite an amazing thing, you know, that this sort of internet-generated initiation of a revolution, if you like, you know, could only happen really in these times, you know, with this kind of technology. So people are, you know, using their mobiles, using their computers and their laptops to start something which is quite incredible, because, in fact, I was feeling quite disenchanted, because I was thinking, well, you know, this virtual world, there were so many in this generation right now who are kind of living a virtual life, you know, they're not quite real. And I thought, you know, I felt a bit sad, because I was thinking about the day of the 60s and how vibrant it all was, you know, when it was all on vinyl and everything. And you could buy actual records, you know, they weren't just things which came on your laptop, you know. So, but then this thing happened, you know, and so it shows you the incredible power the internet can be, you know, when it's used correctly for ideals.
Do you think the Arab world is open to the idea of this kind of unity through music? And of course, music has been such a powerful factor in so much in the past, in revolutions and so on. Is the Arab world ready for this kind of getting together under a song kind of attitude, or are they still too preoccupied with the politics of what's going on?
I think everybody's always got a bit of a time for a song, you know, and you know, looking back, if you look at the civil rights movement, you know, the era that I grew up in, you know, that was an amazingly powerful instrument for the change and the wind of change which happened, which blew through that time. And, you know, we shall overcome, you've got the times they are changing. And even before that, if you look at the root of popular music today, a lot of it came from, you know, the sort of the cotton fields and the blues, you know, which sort of was in a way a way in which people who are stuck in enslavement were able to sort of emancipate themselves, even if they couldn't do it through the, you know, without chains, they could do it by singing. And so you got, you know, Take This Hammer by, you know, Lead Belly, and leading up to Chain Song and Strange Fruit. All these things were incredibly important for people, you know, to help change the world, or the world that they wanted to live in.
And Yusuf, of course, it was 40 years ago that you, as Cat Stevens, released that huge hit, Peace Train. Let our viewers have a listen to that. Peace Train from 40 years ago. It seems that that theme of peace and unity lingers, of course, and across the decades. You know, I want to get an email question to you, Yusuf, because we had quite a few viewers write in when they knew you were coming on, and some of them are, you know, political questions as well. I want to get one to you from Saudi Arabia, from Abdullah Khan, who wrote in from Riyadh, who said, "These revolutions don't mean anything until American influence is eradicated from this region of the world." Is it as simple as that? I mean, America seems to have been out of this picture. It seems like it's a real people movement in the Middle East.
Yeah, I think so, and this is quite an interesting point, that because, you know, people for a long time, you know, they believe in unseen forces. Of course, there are sort of there are those kind of currents and things going on, and there are those conspiracies, if you like. But then the whole conspiracy theory, I don't believe in, because I believe in a higher power than just the power of a nation, you know, a very wealthy nation, very technically, you know, progressed nation. I believe there's another power that when people start to change, you know, there's a verse in the Quran, for instance, that says, you know, God doesn't change the condition of a people until they change that which is with themselves. So really, it's all in the hands of people, and in the minds and in the hearts of decide something. You know, and this movement for change, it does need leadership. I must admit, there is a point where you need someone to arise, you know, to define the moment. If you go back thousands of years, you'll see that we had prophets. You know, we had Moses, you know, leading the children of Israel out of Egypt from the grips of the Pharaoh. You know, but today, I suppose now it's the time where you're looking for leadership, and so that people can actually unite behind a vision.
Now, of course, some star power helps, and we had a viewer who wrote in about the role that musicians can play, and this came in from Joseph Maguire, who wrote saying, "I know you remember revolutionary singers like Bob Marley, John Lennon and Pete Seeger. Can you talk about the musicians' role in youth movements and how music and poetry can be used to inspire and teach people?"
Yeah, well, they're very good examples. You know, Bob Marley, you know, he was a real believer and a real activist, you may say, a musical activist, who inspired a lot of people, and the Jamaicans, particularly the reggae movement and Rastafarian, you know, faith. John Lennon, of course, had an amazing impact, if you think about it, and of course he wasn't well loved also by Nixon at that point, at that time, you know, when he was kind of speaking out against the war in Vietnam. They didn't want him in America, and so he went through his own kind of personal problem. If you go back to Charlie Chaplin, he had the same problem. He was kind of branded a socialist for speaking up about people's rights, you know. So it's a whole lot of very important people who have influenced and continue to send their reverberation through to this time.
Now, one of the things you faced, Yusuf, is the negativity about Islam, especially in the post 9/11 era, once you'd converted to Islam as well. I guess those early years it wasn't such a problem, but certainly post 2001 it was an issue. And I wonder how hard it's been to get people to understand the positive role of religion and the positive part that Islam plays in peace when there's so much negativity about.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous in a way because, you know, of course, I had a pretty dim view of Islam before I started actually reading about it. So when you just listen to hearsay, you know, it's bound to be distorted. And most people listen to today is hearsay, secondhand, and they haven't really studied the issue. When I read the Quran back in 1976, you know, I was just amazed how beautiful and how uniting this message was, you know, to mankind. All the names of the prophets were there: Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and including this last prophet, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and peace be upon all the prophets. You know, he came with essentially the same message. Now, when people look at Muslims today, they're not looking at the message, they're looking at the people. And once I said, and I think I borrowed it from somebody, that if I'd have seen, if I'd have discovered if I hadn't discovered Islam before Muslims, I may not be a Muslim. But of course, it was God's will that I'm a Muslim. But therefore, it means don't look at the people, look at the truth. Then you'll find out who's following it.
Well, let me get an email to you that came in from Canada, if I may here, Yusuf. And it came from Rashid Chowdhury, who says, now that the Europeans have seen that people in the Middle East desire the same things that they do, namely democracy, human rights and dignity, do you think the level of Islamophobia in Europe will fall?
I think some people are gaining a little bit of what you might call political credibility and just speaking out against multiculturalism, because in this pretty bad, dire economic time, you know, then it's a kind of political credence to say such things. But it doesn't really help, you know. And if you really imagine a world without multiculturalism, that looks more like fascism to me, you know. And the whole point here, if you look at it from a human point, we weren't all born on different planets, you know. This is our planet. This is every human being's planet. And if you look at it from the biblical and Quranic point of view, we're all from the same family. So, you know, it's really a matter of, well, politicians aren't, you know, they always tend to be driving up their kind of credibility through these kind of campaigns. And I don't think it's very healthy, because it could be dangerous, especially when a lot of people are, you know, out of work and you've got immigrants and that facing a lot of discrimination.
Now, it's interesting, you talked about when you read the Quran as in 1976 and found that message of unity. A viewer wrote in, and actually, you know, of course you were a target a lot of the time after you converted to Islam, and the comments about Salman Rushdie, and, you know, you were saying that, you know, he didn't really, you know, he deserved what might come to him. A viewer wrote in from the United Kingdom on this and touched on something else about the unity message. It says, John Kendall in the UK wrote in saying, although I have been a great admirer of Yusuf, I have found his statements on Salman Rushdie somewhat disturbing. Now, as the recent uprisings reject religion as a solution, does he acknowledge that religion as an organizer and unifier is now a spent force?
Yeah, I think that's the point. And again, I remind you that listening to what people say and what headlines may say may differ greatly from what the truth is. And, you know, and I never actually, in that circumstance, if you look at the whole situation, I never actually supported that particular fatwa. I was simply saying that in a way that God's rules for living together are still valid. And if you look at the Ten Commandments, and if you know, it doesn't take a very clever person or rocket science, you know, to understand that if we all started practicing the Ten Commandments, you know what kind of a world this would be. So I think it's an amazing thing that people, unfortunately, it's headlines, you know, headline news. People are they're heat-seeking journalists, you know, will always find something to try and blow up. That was a distortion. But the idea of living in peace, I really can't envisage a peaceful world where some people are allowed to just simply revile and make fun of other people's beliefs. I think that there are certain things that we've got to respect, and that in a way is what Islam teaches. You know, unfortunately, some Muslims have got to learn that too.
Now, of course, I know you said, yeah, the message was taken out of context, or what you said about Salman Rushdie was taken out of context. Does it frustrate you that it's so hard to shed negative image once it's been in the media? For example, it was only just last year when you were invited to sing at the Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert rally for, was it a rally to restore sanity and/or fear? In Washington, D.C. Again, that seemed to raise controversy. It must be very frustrating to have to always answer this.
It is, but you know, the great thing was, Riz, is that, you know, when I started that song, I mean, the buzz that I felt coming from the crowd of 250,000 people, it was amazing. They didn't want me to stop, so Ozzy Osbourne, of course, he kind of broke up my song. People were pretty angry at that, actually, but the feeling I got from the moment, it was so beautiful, and that's really a message that I continue to send out. I hope people will hear it.
Now, of course, when I spoke with you in April of 2007, you had just released your first album in 28 years, nearly 3 decades, and Other Cup. And I wonder how smooth it was, the transition getting back into the world of music. Because I know at the time, a lot of people were saying, well, wait a minute, why are you recording when you said that, Islam doesn't promote the idea of music? And again, you addressed this in that last conversation. How easy was it to get back into the music industry?
It was kind of easy, you know. We've got people lining up to give me checks to go on tour and all sorts of things. You know, there's lots of opportunities. But the thing is, I still believe in integrity, and I believe that what I'm doing, like for instance, this song, you know, My People. There's no better way to use music than for something meaningful, and for a cause, for something which is an ideal, a human ideal. And we've got lots of those that have gone missing somehow, and we've got to get back to that place. And I think, when I wrote songs, like Where Do the Children Play, that was an ecological song, you know, it was talking about let's look after this earth. When I wrote songs about Peace Train, that was again a call to let's get together, let's stop this fighting, these imposed wars, we don't want them. So I was a flower child, and in a way I've never stopped being a flower child, and I believe that Islam maybe blossom a little bit more.
Well, here's another email that came in. Janet Howard in Egypt wrote in with this, saying, there seems to be a wave of songs from our new generations that are finally having their voices heard. How do you feel about music in the Muslim world today?
I think the Muslim world is adjusting to the new age, of the reality of the internet and the democratic surge which we're feeling right now, which we're seeing right now, is an amazing thing, and it's a beautiful wind of change which is coming, forcing governments to start to listen and to hear the people, and that's brilliant. And music is just an incredible way and a beautiful way which can harmonize people's hearts and minds, and send out a message. And it is harmless after all, and I think that's a lovely thing to do, and a lovely thing to be involved in. It's some way in which we can all contribute to this thing.
Now, of course, you wrote My People for the people of Egypt and the Arab world, and of course that just continues that unrest. And I know that you'd also started a charity some time back called Small Kindness, which focuses on orphans. Do you see that charity playing any kind of role in this sort of post-turbulent environment in the Middle East?
Yeah, I mean, we're always trying to be where we can help. The problem here, of course, is an immensely political one as well. So it's very difficult to get involved until things settle down in certain areas. But, like for instance, in Egypt, there's a whole new opportunity for the country to rebuild itself, to re-identify itself with its aim and with its people, with its history. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So we're going to try and be involved with Small Kindness. And we also have another very interesting project actually in London. We're establishing a centre called the Maqam Centre, which is essentially a centre to build bridges and to enable people to see a broader view of Islam based on the Prophet Abraham. Of course, a lot of people don't know that there wouldn't be Mecca if Abraham didn't go there and leave his family in that valley. We wouldn't have a place called Mecca today. So therefore, a lot of people don't know the position of Abraham or his children, his offspring, the prophets in Islam. We want to teach that, and we've got a great center there, which is going to be open, I think, very soon. And it's going to have exhibitions, prayer space. There's going to be a swimming pool, cafe, etc. So a different kind of Islamic center, if you like. It's not really an Islamic center, it's a center for people.
All right. I was going to ask you about the Maqam Center, but I also wondered, with the kind of backlash there's been, we saw, of course, in the US, at that multicultural religious center that was being planned, or certainly, you know, initially they called it the mosque, the Muslim center near Ground Zero, the attack site of 9/11. There was a lot of backlash with people saying that this was a, you know, very negative thing. I wonder, have you faced any kind of resistance in Britain where there is still some Islamophobia?
Well, there's always doubt. You know, people have doubts with what they don't see. And so while the building work is going on, you know, people are going, hey, what's this going to be, you know? So you know, we're opening the doors, making sure people understand what this thing is. It's to benefit everybody, but it's a prayer space, a place where people can gather together, intellectuals, artists, you know, discuss, can work together, workshop together. And so there's multifarious activities. When you look at the Ground Zero issue, I mean, you know, it was really, again, it was like political, if you like, credibility being driven up for some people, saying what they believe to be the thing that most people would agree with. And I think it was totally wrong, because in a way the person that's I think initiating that mosque was trying to do exactly what we're trying to do here with the Maqam Center. Right. But it wasn't seen because everybody got the headline first.
Now, of course, you're there right in the heart of the Middle East, and I wonder how you regard what's going on and what people around you are saying as they watch how diverse the reactions have been across the countries. Egypt, obviously, Bahrain, we had Tunisia, and of course in Libya we've got Muammar Gaddafi saying he's willing to basically kill his people, you know, and you know, anyone who resists him. I wonder what the reaction is there, right in the heart of things.
It's pretty quiet, apart from, you know, what we're watching on Al Jazeera. So, you know, we watch it avidly because that gives us the news. And I mean, I must say, I must commend you on you know, the incredible ability that you have to project what's happening right now. But a lot of people, you know, they're just watching with anticipation, and it's still very peaceful here. You know, we've got people going to the beach.
Now, of course, My People, the song you've written for Egypt and the rest of the Arab world, now is going to be available as a free download, isn't it? Tell me how that's going to work.
Well, we're just waiting now for the green light, but pretty soon it's going to be available for free download all around the world. We're hoping through all the major digital outlets, including iTunes and everything. So. And also, of course, my site, yusufislam.com, you'll be able to get to it from there. And people just be able to download it and enjoy and sing along. I hope that this will become a kind of a moment which will be defined by those words, you know, because those words are very important. You know, my people, and we are all, you know, one people. So I think it's a great moment for us to enjoy it.
Just a quick thought, Yusuf, about 30 seconds to go. I wonder, you know, we've seen musicians come together en masse for events such as these. Do you see this where you might rope in some other musicians from around the world to perform this as well?
Yeah, I hope so. You know, when I get to sing this thing on stage as well, you know, when I'm planning to do a tour in May in Europe, and another great thing will be when I hear the audience join in. You know, that's going to be a great moment as well. and getting people involved is, you know, it's great. It's one of the things I want to do.
Well, Yusuf, good luck with that. Thank you very much for taking the time out to speak with us. Good speaking with you.
Thank you, Riz.
Thank you for joining us too. Now remember, you can follow the program on Twitter. We're going to keep you notified on upcoming shows, and you can send us questions and comments to pose to our guests. On the next show, as social revolutions sweep through the Middle East, how marginalized has the US become, and how will this affect its future role in the region? Be sure to tune in for that, but for now we leave you with more of Yusuf's musical tribute to the revolution in the Arab world, his new song, My People. See you next time.
My people.